How's it, guys? Today's DIY video is about a pool pump repair, and although it is quite late in the afternoon, it's quite a simple procedure, something that you guys can do at home with just basic tools. And the best part about this repair is that in absolutely no time we're going to have your pool pumping like a porn star. Welcome back to the Burton Builds garage. Well, the Burton Builds yard. Let's get started. So we're basically going to start off by removing the pump box covers so that we can get easy access to everything. Now, maybe before you do this, it's also very good practice to turn off the circuit breakers for your pump. We're not really going to be fiddling too much with the pump, or the motor should I say, but rather safe than sorry. And just remember, if you do like the video, give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. So you can kind of see that I've been in here before. You know, the pipes are somewhat disconnected. Now I did see this crack a little while ago, and wanted to find out a little bit more about how suitable the installation was. And well, let's say if you want something done right, do it yourself. This installation was originally done by a swim company, if you want to say, a swimming pool company, should I say. And you know, it's one of the local companies. Yeah, well, as I said, if you want something done correctly, do it yourself. The crack is over here. Let's have a closer look. So if you have a closer look here at the pipe, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a crack, and that crack is over there. Now obviously there's nothing spraying out at the moment because the pump is off. There's also another bit of a stress fracture over here. This one is not cracked and leaking yet, but it's going to be leaking really soon. I also did notice, it's kind of here in the shadows, this pipe wasn't leaking, not spraying at all. Pretty much looks fairly good. But if you put your hand or your fingers underneath here and then have a look, now it's fairly dry now because all the water's out. But that's what I did, and I could see that there was moisture on the bottom, you know, definite leak. But however, nothing on the top was leaking. It was completely dry. So all of this has basically came about because of the way the motor was installed. So this has somewhat been repaired already. As I said, I have been in here, and I've got a nice big concrete block underneath the motor with another sort of a thicker concrete block well supporting the motor. And as I said, this pool company did not do a very good job. When I got here, this is what I found, literally just the corner of a piece of tile supporting this motor. So whether it was that company that actually installed it like that, or somebody that was in here before, you know, who knows, but I'm going to say it's that company, because if you prop this motor up like it is, like it should be, nice and level and on a suitable base, a big base, a solid base should I say, none of these pipes actually line up. So yeah, that's what makes me think that. So to fix it is actually fairly simple. We've just got to replace this loose piece of pipe. Now luckily there are joints or connection points over here and over here. So we'll just put in a whole new set of fittings and pipes. One thing to keep in mind that when you are doing this is reset your motor correctly. Make sure that the motor is in the correct place. It's mounted nicely, it's nice and firm, so that once you measure up and cut all your piping and you glue it together, it's going to stand steady, and then this type of thing won't happen. Now, as I said, because this motor was not mounted correctly, the motor was actually hanging off of these pipes, so continually putting pressure on these two joints, and that has clearly been the failure of these two. So what you can do is just go down to one of your local plastic supply stores, you know, one of your local builders' warehouses, Lowe's, or depending on where you are in the world really. Get yourself some pipe. So this is 50mm pipe. I'm using the same 50mm, although this is a far better quality. This is probably a bit of overkill. It's class 16. It's a lot thicker, a lot more tough than this standard white PVC pipe. And then just buy yourself a whole lot of fittings. So these are also 50mm fittings, same as what these are, although these plastic ones, these white plastic PVC ones, are a lot thinner than these. So these are a lot stronger. And I mean, these are like, you know, like $30 each. So in real money terms, maybe $2, really not that much. You know, this pipe is about $70 a meter. Again, maybe like $4.50, something like that. So not very expensive. You're also going to need to get yourself some PVC cement and a little bit of primer, PVC primer or PVC cleaner. I do have that, so let's get into the repair. So a couple of other tools that you might need is just a hacksaw or some type of blade to cut your pipe, something to mark, this is a Koki, mark the pipe, something to measure the pipe of course, and I don't have one of those fancy deburring tools, so I'm just going to use a craft knife, and then as I said, the PVC primer or cleaner, and then some PVC cement, also maybe a rag to make sure everything stays nice and clean. So since these two bends, these top two over here are still in good condition, and I don't have another one of these threaded union points, we're going to cut the pipe over here and we'll make our new connection from the bottom. So just going to pull it out a little bit just so that I can get access, and then basically just cut it off, hopefully without damaging anything else. We're basically going to do the same with this piece of pipe here, and it looks like there is enough of the original pipe. If we cut it off right at this edge, there is enough for the new joint to push on. So I'm about to glue the first joint on. Now what I've done is these joints get pushed into, well, the pipe gets pushed into each joint a certain amount, and there's actually a little lip or a little ledge inside the joint there, and this pipe into this specific joint, now your guys might be different, but it goes in about 32 millimeters. So I've just made up some marks there, that mark from the edge of the pipe, the end of the pipe there to there is 32 millimeters. Don't worry about those were some previous marks that I made. So now that we're going to, well, we've got our piece of pipe cut, so we're going to apply some PVC cleaner and then some of our cement. So we can actually see our mark disappear. That PVC cleaner just wiped off the mark, so that's not a problem. We won't let it touch the grass again, but I'll just mark off another 32 millimeters, and then we know that when we push our joint on, when it gets up to that mark or very close to that mark, then we know the joint has actually been pushed on far enough. As for the PVC cement, we're going to put a bit inside the joint. So I'll put a whole lot in there, probably a little bit too much. I don't think you guys need to put in that much. Anyway, we'll wipe some of the excess off, just like that. We'll also put some around the pipe. Now, this doesn't need to be super thick around the pipe, because we've got so much in the joint already, but anyway, there's a whole lot. And then there's our mark, so we're gonna push it together. We can see that it goes all the way on, and we give it a little twist. And then always good practice to just hold the pipe, or hold the joint onto the pipe for maybe 30 seconds. These joints are, well, I wouldn't say they're designed in such a way to push apart, but they're designed in such a way that if you had to just push it on and let it go before the glue sets, then sometimes the joint can sort of creep back off the pipe. And you can see there I got the pipe pretty much all the way on, about 2 maybe 3 millimeters short of the full penetration on the joint, but that's more than good enough. So there we go. We can see our joint is done, once again holding it on. And what I did there, again pushing the joint onto the pipe, pretty much straight on with a little bit of a twist. And then when it gets all the way home, you can give it a bit of a twist like that, maybe through 45 degrees. I believe that's good practice. So I basically got all of the pipes mocked up together, and this just took a little bit of playing around. I measured roughly the sizes that I needed. So for that pipe there, this one here, that one over there, cut them up, and then we just dry fitted them together just to see that everything was going to work. I ended up having to trim this one a little bit and trim that one a little bit, but yeah, basically that's the way to go about it. Just take your time, trim, rather measure and cut too long, and then you take off 5 or 10 millimeters at a time, half an inch if you're measuring in the imperial system. And yeah, then eventually you'll get to a stage where everything fits together quite nicely. None of the joints are pulling on each other, and the pipes are basically just not floating, but I mean they're hanging freely with all the joints sort of tightened up. Now you can see this joint up here, that's tightened up all the way. The one on the motor you can't really see, that's over there, that's also tightened up all the way. And I've ended up gluing this joint, and that joint, but there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more joints to glue. But before I do the last couple of joints, I just wanted to show you a little trick. And that little trick is fairly simple, and it's going to make your life quite a lot easier. So you can see there, there's 2 black marks. And what I've ended up doing is when I put all of this together and I mocked it up, I made a mark over there and a mark over there, so that I know that once I apply the glue and I push the 2 or the pipe onto the joint and the glue is on there, once you push it together, you've only got a few seconds before the glue sets, and then I line up those 2 marks. And if those are lined up, then I know my joints are orientated correctly. So if you end up getting this wrong or not 100% correct, you might find that although when you dry fitted everything, or I shouldn't say although, but even if you dry fitted everything and they are slightly skew, when you glue them, it's not going to fit, which can be quite frustrating. You might have to start all over again. So that's just a handy little tip, and keep that in mind. So basically with everything mocked up now, as I said, I've already glued that one and I've glued that one. These 2 aren't glued yet. I mean, you can see there's not even a piece of pipe in there. Those are going to butt up together. So, you know, that's quite easy to do. And then since that one is glued, then you can see here, I've actually got a little mark on there. We're also going to put a straight line so that there's sort of an alignment mark. And then we're going to do the same, whoopsie, we're going to do the same over there. We're going to do the same over there, and we're also going to do the same down there, a little bit in the shadows, but I think you guys get the picture, and that'll ensure everything lines up quite nice and well. So you can see I've got my 2 marks ready to go, and we're going to push it in. And then twist it a bit, and then line those 2 marks up, just like that. So these pieces basically have to be glued together like that. So what I've ended up doing is just cutting a short little joining piece. This is about 60 millimeters long, and we'll put glue in both sides and glue this whole thing up and press the whole lot together at once. Well, at least that's the plan. Hopefully it does work out. And again, just remember to make sure that you clean everything properly with PVC cleaner or your primer, your PVC primer. So that's just to basically ensure that there's no grease or grime, and it preps the surface ready for the cement. If you don't do that, I mean, the joints do still work, but it's not the recommended way. For a proper joint, you definitely want to use primer or your PVC cleaner. Now I'm going to try and work a little bit quickly with this because we are doing 2 joints at once, and this stuff does start drying. You can't take too long. So hopefully I'm able to get it all done. There we go. 2 marks have been lined up. Well, I think I'm out of frame there a little bit, but anyway, 2 marks have been lined up, all pushed together, and yeah, let's just check there, definitely. I'm just going to hold it there for a good 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more. And then hopefully that's a nicely sealed joint. Now before we glue the last joint into place, this one over here, it's quite easy to make the mistake, especially if you're doing a repair, to glue this together and then you can't actually feed it through the whole pipe system. You might end up having to take more joints loose. Now I don't want to touch any of the other joints that aren't leaking. We're going to definitely make those leak another day. So basically just going to be winding this through here. Should be fairly easy, just like that. And just going to put it on a couple of threads here. Basically now that that is on, the last joint that we've got to make or glue is this one over here. And now it's pretty safe to glue that into place, and then we can see our whole pipe system is ready to go. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but quite a lot of birds in the trees making little calls and flapping around. Quite relaxing, actually. And there we have it. Job is pretty much complete for now. Well, at least for today. It's getting quite late in the evening now. I did start a little bit late in the afternoon, so to be expected. But all the blue piping is in, and the joints are just lightly, well, the joints are all glued, but I'm talking about that joint is just lightly turned up or tightened up, and everything has been glued at the bottom, at the top. The joint from the new pipe to the old pipe has been done, and because we took our time, we made those little marks that I was talking about. You can see this one hasn't been connected up yet, but look how well it is lined up. It's really lined up quite nice and in line. I mean, you can see the pump is, everything is still a bit loose, but it kind of wants to spring back to exactly in line. Now, that's exactly what we're looking for, actually. So as soon as I tighten that back up, then there's not going to be any excessive pressure on any of these joints that are connecting the pump to the valve and to everything else. Now, that is exactly what we are looking for. That way, if there's no excessive pressure on the joints, then they are less likely to crack. So all that is left to do now is just to leave the glue dry overnight. I'll rather be safe than sorry. I mean, I think it sets properly in about 3 or 4 hours according to what it says on the tin, but I'll leave it overnight and we'll pick this up in the morning. Okay, sparrow party in the morning, and all that's left to do now is to connect up this part at the pump and the other part at the valve. Now, just looking at the condition of these rubber O-rings, they probably need to be replaced. Something to keep in mind if you are, or if you've got your unions open. You know, maybe these will work, maybe not. We'll see. If they do leak, at least I know it's just a union that's leaking and not a joint. Well, at least let's hope it's not a joint. Just going to nip that up for now and get going on the other side. Okay, this one's tight. Back to the other side and we'll tighten that up. So it's pretty late in the day and I've been pumping for a couple of hours and absolutely no leaks. I would say that's a job well done. Now there is of course one more joint that I do still need to replace. I'm not going to do it in this video. It's done exactly the same way as what you guys have seen. And yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Let us know in the comment section what you thought about the repair. Maybe you guys have had some good or bad experiences. Let us know, let everybody else know. Well, that's it. Stick around for the next DIY video project, whatever that's going to be. Hopefully it's out soon. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Cheers.